The usual, just killing time until we need to get in our gear. Alexis, what position do you play? You never told me. Dylan, I'm a running back. I smiled. That meant he was quick, light on his feet, and ran the ball a lot. Alexis, what are your yards per carry? There were a couple heartbeats of silence before he answered. Dylan, you know what stats are? Alexis, yeah, watched football with my dad a lot. He always answered any questions I had, and I wanted to understand what was going on. Dylan, let me get somewhere quieter and I'll call you. I need to hear you talking about stats. Panic clutched my chest tight. Alexis, no. I winced as I sent that, then quickly tried to explain. Alexis, I can't talk on the phone right now. I just remembered you had a game today and I figured you'd be too busy to talk to me. I felt my face turn pink as I hit send. Dylan, where are you that you can't talk? I groaned. He probably thought I was on the toilet or something. That was worse than the truth. Sighing, I texted him back. Alexis, I'm kind of soaking in the tub. I just wanted to wish you luck tonight. Didn't think you could talk. It was a couple minutes before he replied. Dylan, damn, Lexi. I snickered to myself. Alexis, I tried not telling you. Dylan, I'm calling. Alexis, I won't answer. Dylan, I'm so going to talk to you when you're naked. Alexis, not today, you're not. Dylan, tell me there are bubbles. I started laughing so hard I almost dropped my phone into the water. Alexis, LMAO. Dylan, fine, don't tell me if there are bubbles, or if your hair is down or up. Alexis, okay, I'm hanging up now. Dylan, okay, I'll behave. What are you doing tonight after the game? Alexis, the guys are taking me to a party somewhere. Dylan, Zeke going? I looked at my phone suspiciously. Why did he want to know about Zeke? Alexis, yeah, why? Dylan, just suddenly very grateful you have guy friends. My heart melted as I texted him back, but I was also a little irked he thought I needed protecting. It was a weird feeling. Alexis, you're sweet, but I can handle a party. Dylan, I bet you can, but you're small, honey. There's only so much you can do against a guy bigger than you. I hated to admit it, but he was right. Hell, Zeke had proved that on Tuesday. I sighed, resigned. Alexis, you want me to stick near the guys, don't you? Dylan, it would help me not worry about you. I groaned. I could just tell him that I was going to stick near the guys. Hell, I probably was anyway. They were the only ones at school I really knew. But he didn't need to know that. Alexis, all right, I'll stick with the guys. Dylan, thank you. Alexis, what are you doing after the game? Dylan, heading home. We'll get back around 11:30 tonight. Then I was going to take a shower and text you to see if you were awake to talk. Alexis, sounds good to me. Dylan, it's a date. Now seriously, Bubbles? I burst out laughing and shaking my head. Alexis, LOL. I'll talk to you later tonight. Good luck at the game. Dylan, TTYL. I put my phone down and laid my head back, smiling. I started getting into the music. I began to sing along. After I was done, I turned off the jets and unplugged the tub. I was still singing along to Hailstorm's Amen when I tied a towel around me and was dabbing my wet hair with another, when I opened the door, still singing, and froze. All four boys were sitting there looking at me, red-faced and laughing. Miles was the only one looking apologetic, standing by the bed, his hands in his pockets. Oh, God. They heard me singing. My face went red instantly as I yanked the buds out. Their laughter filled my ears. I grabbed both ends of the towel in my hands, flipping it into a rat tail. You assholes! I shouted at them. and started whipping one end of the towel at the boys on the bed. They kept laughing as they scattered out of range. I chased them out of the bedroom, nailing a few on their butts. "Worth it," Isaac shouted on his way out the door. In the hall, Ethan turned around out of range of the towel. "Your voice is actually pretty good." I threw the towel at his face and slammed the door, this time locking it. I'll never forget to lock the bedroom door again. I finished getting ready. I did my normal hair stuff, combing anti-frizz, but this time I added leave-in conditioner, and I dried my hair with a hairdryer while I waited for my face to turn back to normal. Then I did my usual sunscreen moisturizer. I know it's nighttime, but damn it, I'm very white. I did my usual makeup, only tonight I made the shadow a few shades darker and the black liner thicker, bringing my eyes out more. I looked at my face and thought about using a deep red lipstick. Nah, I'm wearing red already. I put on a rosy pink lipstick that was a couple shades darker than my natural lips. I stepped back and looked in the mirror. The makeup wasn't as subtle as normal, but it still looked good. I put on my black bra and underwear. I pulled on black skinny jeans, a dark red Henley long-sleeve shirt. I made sure to unbutton a couple buttons to show a little cleavage. I didn't want to fall out of my shirt tonight. I pulled on my tall black boots with black leather straps on the outside, making sure to tuck my pants into the boots. I left the bathroom and looked in the full-length mirror in the bedroom. My hair was in sleek curls for once, no frizz or flyaways. The skinny jeans showed the shape of my hips and thighs even more than my usual boot-cut jeans. And with the still somewhat modest shirt, I didn't look real sexy until you were standing near me. That's what I liked. Subtle but sexy. I used a quick layer of nice-smelling hairspray to keep my hair from frizzing. I made sure to put my 2 necklaces on, tucking them into my shirt, and my onyx beads, which I pulled my shirt sleeve over. I even made a point to put on the rosemary oil again. I was going to have fun tonight. No ghost drama, just normal teenage fun, whatever the hell that means. I grabbed my keys, cell, and wallet before leaving the bedroom. I found the guys waiting in the living room. When they spotted me, eyebrows went up and talking stopped. I took a look at them. Zeke and Miles were still in their clothes from this morning. Ethan was wearing black jeans, a black collared shirt unbuttoned, showing a black t-shirt underneath, along with his usual rings on his fingers and in his ear, but he was freshly shaved. Isaac was still wearing his dark blue jeans, only his orange t-shirt had a vintage look. He also wore an olive green short-sleeved collared shirt, unbuttoned. Isaac's hair was actually combed. "You guys clean up pretty good," I told them. Well, I held my hands out and did a turn. I heard Zeke curse. When I was facing them again, I looked at them questioningly. Isaac had a confused look on his face. "What?" I looked down, thinking I got makeup on my clothes or something. When I saw nothing, I looked back at him with an eyebrow raised. "How do you do that?" Isaac asked. "Do what?" I looked down at my outfit again, not understanding what he was asking. "You were completely dressed, showing almost no skin, and still..." Isaac trailed off. "We're going to spend all night making sure she's not in trouble," Zeke groused, looking at the others. Miles's ears had turned a soft pink. Isaac's eyebrows were up, and Ethan was grinning ear to ear. I took it all as a compliment. "Relax, Zeke, I'm not planning on drinking." His shoulders relaxed. "Good." His eyes ran over me again, the worry back on his face. I wrinkled my nose at him. "Oh, I almost forgot." Ethan went over to the couch and grabbed a shopping bag. He handed it to me. "Miles and I went shopping for you." I raised an eyebrow and opened the bag. There was a great soft black scarf with white skulls of different sizes all over it. I loved it instantly. "This is awesome. Where did you get it? I think I need this in every color," I asked, having a big girly moment. The guys laughed as I pulled out soft black knit gloves and a black beanie with a skull and crossbones on the front. I loved them. I dropped the bag and hugged Ethan tight. Thank you, guys. I love them. I let go of Ethan and hugged Miles, who went tense, but then relaxed after a couple heartbeats. No problem, Lexi, Miles told me, patting my back. Yeah, I was only thinking about my poor neck, Ethan teased. I threw my scarf on and tucked the gloves and beanie into my jean pockets. Come on, I'll drive, I told them as I picked up my jacket. Everyone grabbed their coats, checked their charms, and we headed out. When we pulled up to the student lot, it was packed. I hadn't realized how popular a football game was in this town. I finally found a spot and parked. We paid and went through the gate. Ethan stayed behind, wanting to wait for Christina. The crowd was thick enough that we had to go single file. I grabbed Miles's and Isaac's hands to stop us from getting separated. Zeke was in front, making a path. When we made it to a less crowded area, I let go of the boys and looked around. We were on the far right side of the bleachers. We followed Zeke down the cement steps till we were around the middle. This good? Zeke asked, pointing to the benches. We all said yes. I ended up on the left with Isaac and Miles to the right. Zeke sat behind me. The guys started talking about the game and injuries some of the players had. I asked about Asher's stats and got a couple surprised looks. Then Miles was telling me Asher's numbers. The bleachers were really filling up when Ethan found us, Christina in tow. She had a cute face with a button nose, long straight brown hair, and pretty brown eyes. She was wearing an oversized lavender sweater, white jeans, and a khaki jacket. She was cute. There was no other way to describe her. Everyone, this is Christina, Ethan announced before he pointed at each of us. That's Zeke, Miles, Isaac, and Lexi. Isaac said hi. Miles smiled and turned around quickly, his fingers tapping that staccato rhythm again. Christina looked really tense, her fingers nodding in on themselves over and over again. I got an idea. Thank God, another girl, I all but shouted dramatically. I stood up and hurried across the bench in front of us to get past the boys. I was soon sitting next to Christina, her face lit up, her eyes wide. I gave her my pleading face. Please talk to me about girl stuff. I'm begging you. The guys burst out laughing. Even Christina chuckled. No one wants to hear that stuff, Red. Isaac shot over his shoulder, a mischievous half grin on his face. He knew what I was doing. I leaned over and popped him lightly on the shoulder. Shut up. We already talked about football stats. It's my turn. I shot back, before turning back to Ethan's date. I kept asking her questions to get her to start talking. She was in the school band, played the flute and piano. She was hoping to go on to college with a great music program. The more I got her to talk, the more she relaxed and talked to the others. She asked me what it was like to have so many guy friends. I told her it was a hoot, in a deadpan voice. I told her about this afternoon, and the whole boys listening to me sing incident. I left out that I was in a towel part. The guys snickered. I shot each of them a glare. Christina giggled. Christina also showed me several ways to fold and use my new scarf. I didn't know there was more than one way to use a scarf. Huh. Learned something new every day. When the game started, I got up to go back to my spot. Ethan caught my eye and mouthed, "Thank you." I gave him a wink and went back to my spot. As the game went on, we cheered and booed the bad calls. It wasn't until it was well into the second quarter that I realized the temperature had dropped. I could see my breath. It was cold. I had mostly lived in Southern California, Arizona, and New Mexico. It did not get this cold there. The metal bench under my butt seemed to steal any warmth I had. I pulled on my gloves and my beanie. I was a bit warmer, but still freezing. Shit, it's cold, I finally muttered. What's wrong, Lexi? Didn't it get cold in California? Isaac taunted. I blew into my gloved hands. Not this freaking cold. I was starting to seriously consider sitting in one of the guys' laps. I was even trying to decide whose lap I was jumping into when Zeke caught my attention.
There's hot chocolate at the snack bar if you want something warm.
I was up and down the aisle in a blink. I only stopped long enough to ask if someone else wanted something. They all said no, laughing as I ran up the steps. I didn't care. I was not used to this weather. I was on my way back from the snack bar with my large hot chocolate warming my hands when I heard my name. I stopped and looked around. Eric waved to me as he hurried over through the crowd.
So you made it,
Eric observed.
Where are you sitting?
I gestured over my shoulder towards the other end of the bleachers. With the guys on the end over there. It's less crowded. I took a sip of my cocoa.
Do you think your friends will mind if I join you?
He asked, his voice uncertain. Surprised, I didn't know really how to answer. I had a date with Dylan tomorrow and a phone date tonight. Did that make it weird if Eric came to sit with us during the game? I was really rusty at this. I don't think so, I stammered, still not knowing how to answer. Eric seemed to relax and walked with me. I had just finished telling him that Zeke wasn't as protective as he seemed today when we reached the guys. Hey guys, this is Eric, I announced, narrowing my eyes at Zeke, warning him not to start glaring. He gave me a smirk and went back to watching the game. I pointed out everyone as I introduced them. This is Christina, Ethan, you know, Zeke, Isaac, and Miles. Everyone said hi except Zeke. I decided to sit down next to Miles. Keeping Zeke away from Eric seemed a good idea. I might not want to date the guy, but I didn't want to have him shit himself if Zeke sneezed. The game went on, and the conversation flowed. Halftime came, and my phone vibrated. I checked it. Ethan.
Who's this guy?
I made sure Eric couldn't see my phone and answered. Alexis. Guy from English, Zeke scared off. He wanted to sit with me and I didn't know how to answer. I'm actually not dating anyone, but at the same time I have a phone date with Dylan tonight and a regular one tomorrow. It wasn't long before he wrote back. Ethan.
A double pull. Nice, beautiful.
I snickered and put my phone away. No judgment from Ethan. I liked that about him. I went back to watching the halftime show. We were in the third quarter when it happened. Hoots and whistles went up through the crowd. I didn't understand until Miles touched my shoulder gently.
Lexi,
Miles said, his voice serious.
The big screen.
I looked up and my heart dropped. There was a photo of me in my underwear. It was obvious I was changing in the locker room and that I had no idea the photo was being taken. Words flashed across the bottom of the screen. Call for a good time, followed by a phone number. My mouth dropped. More cheers and laughter rang out through the crowd. Oh my goodness! Christina's voice was shocked.
What the fuck?
Ethan cursed, his voice low with controlled anger.
Who the hell did that?
Isaac growled.
Why is it still up there?
Even Miles's voice was cold. I didn't hear anything from Zeke, and I knew that wasn't good.
Is that your phone number?
Eric asked, stunned. I read the number again. No, I said, as I took a really good look at the picture. At first, it looked bad, I admit. I was in my underwear on a big screen. My underwear wasn't skimpy. In fact, it covered more than some swimsuits. Once I thought of that, I felt better, and it didn't bother me so much. It looked like I was wearing a two-piece swimsuit. The only reason anyone knew it was underwear was because of the locker next to me and the jeans in my hand. I decided to look on the bright side and laugh this off. At least I don't look half bad. I heard Christina make a surprised laugh behind me. The twins immediately agreed with me, if only to make me feel better. That's when I heard Zeke get to his feet and step into the spot where I was sitting earlier. Then everything happened fast.
Zeke,
Isaac called a warning. Zeke stepped down onto the next bench and started walking up that bench toward the center aisle.
"Oh no,"
Miles muttered.
"Lexi, stop him,"
Ethan shouted. I got to my feet as he began to pass me and jumped onto his back like a spider monkey. "Zeke, stop. Calm down," I told him, my voice hard as I was clinging to his back with my knees around his ribs and my arms around his neck. I had managed to get high enough on his back that my face was near his ear. Zeke barely noticed my weight. He kept going. He stepped out into the center aisle. "It was a girl. I was in the locker room. You can't kill a girl, and you can't do it with me on your back. You'll make me an accessory to murder," I pointed out, hoping that would stop him. He stopped walking.
"Get off me, baby,"
he growled. His whole body was tense under me. His hands went to my arms as if to pry me off. I grabbed his wrists and squeezed tighter with my legs. "It was probably Jessica. We have gym the same period. You can't beat up a girl," I explained, desperately. He was so pissed he was actually shaking to hit someone under my weight. He twisted his wrists from my grasp and started to back up the steps. Oh, shit. Miles, Isaac, and Ethan had run up the steps and were trying to stop him.
"But the guy running the damn screen isn't, and he hasn't taken the fucking thing down,"
Zeke snarled, still climbing. "Miles will get him to take it down," I assured him, as I looked up desperately at Miles. "Miles, go get them to take it down." Miles instantly turned and ran up the steps 2 at a time. Isaac took Miles' spot, blocking Zeke, but it wasn't working. They were just slowing him down, so I kept talking. "Yeah, I'm in my underwear, but that covers more than most swimsuits do. It's not even my real phone number." I kept going as he kept climbing. "I'm not that embarrassed. I don't look too bad. Sure, I need some muscle tone, so I'll probably start working out with you guys, but otherwise—"
"It's down,"
Ethan announced, not relaxing from his defensive position. Zeke stopped a step down from them. I felt his back rising and falling as he took deep breaths. I kept talking. "Zeke, I don't care about it. It's okay," I whispered to him. He shook his head.
"It's not okay, Lexi. Some assholes putting a picture of you up like that is not okay."
He snapped over his shoulder at me. He kept taking deep breaths as he was fighting to keep control. Miles came back down the stairs, his face pink, his eyes running over us.
"Are we good?"
he asked, watching Zeke like you would a wolf. I shook my head. We weren't good. We were out of emergency, but we weren't good. An idea sparked in my mind. "Zeke, if you calm down, we can call Rory," I offered calmly. Zeke looked at me over his shoulder. "I just turned 17 in August, and someone just put a photo of me in my underwear on display."
"Technically, that is child pornography. It's a felony,"
Miles chimed in, seeing where I was going with this. "And I am the niece of a very overprotective cop," I reminded him. Personally, it only irritated me, but if I had to call Rory to get Zeke to calm down, I'd call Rory. Zeke's body relaxed a little under me. "Rory will scare the shit out of her and whoever helped her," I offered, in a sing-song voice. He ran a hand through his hair and gave a big, hard sigh.
"Fine. Call Rory."
Zeke's voice was still not back to normal. I gave him a nudge in the ribs with my right knee. "Take me back to my seat first." "Mush," I teased, hoping to get a mouth twitch. I got a snort. Even better. Zeke turned around and walked down the steps carefully. We were almost back to our seats when Eric met us. His eyes went from Zeke to me on Zeke's back.
"Not that protective, huh?"
Zeke didn't stop so I could talk to him. He kept moving. "Can you blame him?" I asked sarcastically. If he didn't understand why one of my friends would be pissed over this, then he could fuck off.
"See you in English, Alexis,"
he said before heading back up the stairs. Zeke's hands came back and wrapped around my knees, giving me more support as he continued down the stairs. He gave me a gentle squeeze, probably apologizing. "You know, it's like I'm riding a dinosaur up here," I told him. so he knew I wasn't upset. The other boys laughing behind me, I sat up a bit and started looking around. So this is what you see if you're tall. I felt him chuckle. I smiled, pleased with myself. When we reached where Christina was sitting, Zeke went down another step before he let go of my legs and squatted down enough for me to touch the ground. I let go and waited for him to get back to his feet. He looked at me expectantly.
Call Rory,
he demanded. I pulled out my phone and dialed as everyone else sat back down. I started back to my seat only to see that I had knocked my hot chocolate to the ground. I picked up the now empty cup and set it aside to throw it away. Rory answered as I was scooting in to sit next to Miles. Zeke sat next to me. I explained to him the situation and how I wanted to scare the shit out of the ones responsible. Rory agreed completely. He was going to send a couple guys on duty over to the game and take care of it. I don't want to charge them, I repeated for the 5th time to Rory. My uncle sounded so pissed that I felt I had to keep reminding him.
I got it, Lexi, trust me. We'll have them in cuffs by the end of the game, and it'll be very public.
Rory reassured me before hanging up. I tucked my cell phone away. Then I looked up at Zeke. He says they'll have them in cuffs before the end of the game, and it'll be public, I announced.
Good,
Zeke said in a satisfied voice. Everyone agreed. Then I remembered Asher. If Jessica were responsible, it would be his sister that was put in cuffs. I cursed. Asher's going to be mad, isn't he? I asked no one in particular, biting the corner of my lip.
Nah,
Isaac reassured me.
He probably saw the photo too.
Zeke shook his head, the worry back on his face.
You know what's going to happen now, right?
He asked, getting all of our attention.
Guys are going to start catcalling you, harassing you. The creeps are going to start coming around.
Zeke trailed off. He was clearly dreading the fallout of the photo. Then I'll deal, and if anyone gets handsy, I'll punch them. I bumped my shoulder into his, getting his attention. It'll be okay, Zeke. I'm a big girl. I can sock a guy in the jaw just as easily as you can. That made the corner of his mouth twitch. He looked away from me, his eyes finding my empty paper cup.
I owe you a hot chocolate.
He heaved himself to his feet and headed toward the center aisle. No killing, Zeke, I called after him.
No killing,
he grumbled back. Or maiming. He turned to me with that smirk finally on his face.
No maiming,
he assured me before heading up the stairs. It was only a few moments later when Ethan started laughing. Then Isaac started up, then Miles. Then even I was laughing. The relief actually left me lightheaded, but for the others it was something else.
When I said to stop him, I didn't mean for you to jump on him, Lexi.
Ethan managed through his laughing. It just kind of happened, I explained. Besides, Zeke wouldn't go into a fight with me on his back, and I was clinging like a monkey. That brought another round of laughing.
Oh, I wish I had that on camera,
Isaac admitted. Soon we all settled down and watched the game. It wasn't long till Zeke was back, and I had my hot chocolate warming my hands again. It was near the end of the 4th quarter when Zeke looked to our left. I turned, and sure enough, 2 uniformed police officers were going down the stairs toward the front of the bleachers. I couldn't help but smile as they approached the cheerleaders.
Oh, here it comes,
Isaac said excitedly. He even had his phone out, recording as Jessica was handcuffed and taken back up the stairs in front of everyone. When they were out of sight, Isaac stopped recording. I leaned over to him. Send me that video, I whispered to him.
Are you kidding? I'm putting it on YouTube.
I watched as he did just that. I looked to my right at Zeke. Feel better now? He nodded, his head grinning.
Yeah, I do,
Zeke admitted. I nodded myself. I kind of do too. The game was over soon after that, and we all headed out to wait by Asher's car. Christina had left after the game, saying she had a curfew. We all turned our backs and walked a ways away to try to give them some privacy. We made small talk loudly, so we couldn't hear them till they walked off into the parking lot. Ethan came back after walking her to her car, frowning. "Didn't go well?" I asked, wincing. Ethan shook his head.
"That's all right. We managed to stop Zeke from killing someone, so it wasn't so bad,"
Ethan offered, as he leaned against the car next to me. I leaned over and rested my head against his shoulder. "Sorry." Ethan's arm moved. He wrapped it around my shoulders and gave me a squeeze. I put my head back on his shoulder.
"Not your fault."
"We are going to a party," I reminded him, hoping to cheer him up. "Lots of girls to use that smoky, toe-curling voice on." Ethan smiled down at me, his chocolate eyes warm.
"Yeah, you're right,"
he nodded. "Besides, it looks like one of you guys is going to have to take me to homecoming and winter formal," I informed them, sulking a little.
"Yeah, what was up with that Eric guy?"
Isaac asked, moving to stand across from us.
"Your photo gets put on the big screen and one of your friends goes berserk?"
Isaac spread his arms, palms up.
"You help calm him down and he bails?"
"I think it was because that friend was a guy," I suggested, and then added, "that Zeke is protective of me just tipped the scale."
"That's ridiculous,"
Miles chimed in.
"Zeke's protective of all of us." "I can hear you, you know,"
Zeke called over to us from a few steps away. We giggled. "It doesn't matter. Anyone I date has to hold their own around you guys, otherwise they can go," I told them honestly. Ethan pulled me close and kissed the top of my head. It made me feel warm. That cared-for feeling washed over me again. I think I was starting to get used to it.
"You mean like Dylan?"
Ethan teased. I snorted. "We'll find out tomorrow night."
"I'm just speculating here, but Eric could have not liked what he saw on the big screen,"
Miles suggested. My mouth dropped as I looked at him. The other boys groaned. I heard Zeke curse. "Miles, I know I need some muscle tone, but did I look that bad?" I asked, using the question to point out what he had said wrong. His eyes went wide when he realized his mistake.
No.
He waved his hand in front of himself, as if he could erase what he said and start over.
"I mean the attention. He might be a more low-key person."
I looked over to Isaac. "Can I start working out with you guys? I want that muscle tone."
"We start tomorrow at 7 a.m.,
Isaac said, grinning at me. "Sadists." "Who's a sadist?" Asher asked, coming up to the group. His blonde hair was wet but combed. He was back in blue jeans, a white long-sleeve shirt, and dark blue hoodie. His eyes went to my face, assessing.
"And what the hell happened on the big screen?"
"Your sister snapped a picture of me in the locker room," I explained. "She got some guy to put it up on the screen with a fake cell phone number."
"Zeke was dead set to go on a rampage, but Beautiful here jumped onto his back. She latched onto him like a monkey,"
Ethan chimed in.
"Red managed to stall him long enough for Miles to run up and get the picture off the screen before Zeke killed the guy,"
Isaac continued for Ethan.
"And once the screen was off, Lexi calmed Zeke down by offering to call Rory, since she is only 17, and that was her, not Drust."
Miles continued for Isaac.
"That made it child porn, which is a felony. The guy controlling the big screen and your sister were cuffed and taken to the police station."
Zeke finished for all of us. Asher's face was stunned. "I'm not pressing charges. My uncle's cop buddies are just scaring the shit out of them," I assured him, before he started worrying. It took a minute to process everything before he responded.
"Okay, she deserved it. Let's hit the party."
Chapter 18. We ended up taking 2 cars. Zeke and Miles went with Asher. The twins came with me. I followed Asher to a house outside of town. The house looked like it had been a barn at one time, but had been renovated and had new additions. The party was in full swing when we arrived. I parked far enough back from the house that even if more people showed up, the blazer wouldn't be buried. Isaac was out the door as soon as I stopped. I shut off the truck, climbed out, and met Ethan on the other side. We both watched as Isaac ran through the cars and into the house. Ethan sighed sadly.
"That's not a good sign,"
Ethan announced. We started walking toward the house. "Why's that? Isaac's always excited." Ethan shook his head.
"My brother is different when he drinks,"
he explained.
"We all end up keeping an eye on him to make sure he doesn't do anything stupid."
"Like what?" I asked, as Zeke, Asher, and Miles spotted us and began making their way over. We stopped to wait.
"One time he got on the roof of the house and wanted to jump into the pool. That was over 10 feet from the house."
I winced, thinking about how much that would hurt, hitting cement like that.
Asher had to tackle him. We got real lucky neither of them went off the roof.
Wow. The others joined us. Asher raised an eyebrow at me.
"I'm just telling Beautiful about Isaac when he drinks,"
Ethan explained. Asher nodded.
"Did you tell her about the time he was punching a tree for almost an hour before we found him?"
Asher asked Ethan. Seriously? It was hard to imagine sweet, funny, energetic Isaac like that.
"Yeah. Then there was that girlfriend he had,"
Zeke answered, shaking his head as we all headed for the house.
"Yeah, she treated him like shit and he just took it."
Ethan stepped behind me as we slipped through the cars.
"I mean bad. She called him names, put him down all the time. It was insane."
"He'd probably still be dating her if her family hadn't moved away," Asher added.
"You remember him climbing without gear on our hike?"
Ethan asked me. I nodded.
"That sort of shit."
"He also likes to pick fights with groups of guys at these things," Miles chimed in. "Does he ever say why he does this stuff?" I was genuinely worried about him. I was half tempted to go in that house, yank him out, and take him back to Miles's house. They all shook their heads.
"When he gets like that, he doesn't talk to us. Not until after he's sober, and never about what happened,"
Ethan admitted. We were getting close to the house now. I could hear the music thumping. "So what do you do when he starts a fight?" I asked, just in case. The guys shrugged. "Get a grip on him and get him outside," Miles said simply. Well, shit.
"All right, guys. One of us in the room with Isaac at all times,"
Zeke said, as if this was routine.
"Lexi and Miles are the sober drivers. If you see Brandon Zimmer, watch him carefully."
I raised an eyebrow at that. Zeke didn't notice.
"If he tries to drop something in a girl's drink, kick his ass out and don't be gentle about it."
Zeke's gaze zeroed in on me.
"And you, don't accept a drink from anyone that isn't one of us. Don't put your drink down and drink from it. Get a new one, and if Brandon Zimmer comes to talk to you, kick him in the balls for me."
I smiled sweetly at that. I had no problem with that.
"Try to stay in the same room as one of us."
I frowned at him.
"Please,"
he added quickly.
"If you get into trouble you can't handle, just shout for Asher and your location. Guy's got the hearing of a blind man."
Asher smiled. "It's true. If you give even a half shout in there, I'll be able to hear you from the second floor," Asher admitted nonchalantly. "Even over the music?" They all nodded. Damn, that was impressive. "Remind me never to use the bathroom with you in the next room." We were on the porch of the house when Asher waved his hand dismissively.
"Just turn on the faucet, that's what my sister does,"
Asher called over his shoulder. We walked into the house. It was huge. The old barn's main room went all the way to the roof. Railings showed it was open on the second floor. We made our way into the house and almost immediately got separated. A hand grabbed mine. I turned to see Miles tugging me through the dance floor. A hand went around my waist as someone started to grind on my hip. My elbow shot out, knocking the air from the guy's lungs. He let go, gasping, as I followed Miles. We came out of the dense crowd. Zeke took a beer bottle from Asher as he was searching the room. I imagine he was looking for Isaac. Miles pulled me to the drink table and grabbed a red plastic cup. "Have you ever had orange juice with 7-Up?" he asked, pouring the drink. "Nope." Miles grinned as he handed me the cup. "Try it." He went about making himself one. I took a sip and liked it. It was sweet, light, and made my tongue tingle from the carbonation. "Okay, that's good," I told him. Miles smiled, putting down the 7-Up. "And no one will hassle you about not drinking." He lifted his cup up. I hit his with mine. We both drank. I liked Miles's way of thinking. Ethan came out of the crowd, a red cup in his hand.
"Isaac's found the ping pong table,"
he announced. "Beer pong?" I asked. He shook his head.
"Shot pong."
I groaned. That was awful. The guys cursed. I tapped Miles's shoulder and pointed at the table. "Get me a can of soda, please." Miles turned and did as I asked, as the others were debating who was going to watch Isaac first. Miles handed me the can. I nudged Ethan's arm. "Show me where Isaac is. I'll take the first watch and try to slow him down. Maybe I'll get him to do something else for a while." The guys all thought about that for a moment. "That might just work," Asher announced.
"Hell, she can get Zeke to calm down. She might be able to keep Isaac from doing something stupid."
Ethan agreed.
"We'll rotate out every 30 minutes. Sound good?"
Zeke asked, looking at everyone. Everyone agreed. We split up. Ethan took my elbow and led me to the far side of the house. It looked like a recreation room. There was an air hockey table, darts, and video game, in addition to the ping pong table. Ethan stopped before Isaac could see him. He pointed me in the right direction. I nodded when I saw Isaac's blue hair. Ethan melted back into the crowd near the door. I moved around the group that was watching other people play video games.
"Hey, you're the girl from the big screen,"
I heard someone say as I kept walking. The voice followed.
"Hey, I'm looking for a good time, honey."
"Find it somewhere else," I shot over my shoulder. His friends laughed. It sounded like he took it well since he backed off. I just hoped anyone else who tries does too. I stepped into Isaac's line of sight. The boys had taken the net down and had 6 cups in front of each of them. Isaac had just landed a ball into the other guy's cup, making him drink, when I sidled up next to him, touching his arm with my hip. "Hey, Cookie Monster," I greeted him, smiling. Isaac looked up and smiled.
"Red, there you are. Where is everyone?"
He greeted me. "They ditched me for some girls," I sighed, with fake disappointment. I held out the soda to him. "And I heard you might need a chaser." Isaac took the soda from me.
"Yeah, I did. Thanks, Red."
He gestured to one of the other chairs.
"Have a seat. Stay a while."
I sat down and watched as the other guy missed on Isaac's end. They went back and forth for a while, both missing. The other guy made it into Isaac's cup. I watched as he drank the shot and refilled it with tequila and put it back in line. I started thinking about how I could get Isaac away from the pong table. I came up with an idea when a guy approached me.
"You're the new girl, right?"
he asked, already slurring his words. "I'm Alexis," I offered, trying to be polite.
"That's a cool name,"
he said, before tapping his chest.
"I'm Anthony. Everyone calls me Tony."
I noticed out of the corner of my eye that Isaac had sunk another ball. "It's nice to meet you, Tony." I turned back to watch the game.
"Hey, what was with the big screen at the game? Who would do that to you?"
he asked, leaning closer. I shrugged. "I pissed someone off and they tried to get back at me," I explained, watching Isaac drink another shot. Okay, 2 shots down that I've seen. I needed to get Isaac away from the table. I was about to get up when Tony put his hand on my knee.
"That's a shame. You're a pretty girl. They shouldn't have put your photo up like that."
I turned my head and looked him in the eye. "Move your hand or I will break it," I said in a dead calm voice. He lifted his hand away and backed up.
Can't blame a guy for trying, he said, before disappearing into the crowd. I turned to see Isaac down another shot. Shit. I got up and went over to him. "Cookie Monster?" I asked in a sweet voice. He looked up at me, smiling. He wasn't drunk yet. "Yeah, Red?" I used my best pout on him. "Will you come dance with me?" I asked, almost pleading. His eyebrows rose in surprise. "You're one of the few guys around here I trust not to get handsy." His eyebrows dropped as he understood. No one wanted a repeat of the bar. "You got it, Red," he told me. He looked down the table at the other guy. "Sorry, man, but a lady calls." Isaac took my hand and led me through the house back into the front room. I spotted Zeke leaning against the wall talking to a girl with purple hair. When he spotted us, I winked at him as Isaac pulled me onto the dance floor. We danced. I moved to the music next to Isaac, ignoring everyone else in the room. When a guy crowded close, I'd throw an elbow just before Isaac pulled me closer, his arm going around my waist as he glared over my shoulder. The music changed to a loud thumping rhythm. We put our arms in the air, jumping along with everyone else. When the music changed to a slow song, he pulled me in close with one arm around my waist. I leaned in and proceeded to tell him the worst jokes I had ever heard. He shot some back. Soon we were going back and forth. We kept getting weird looks on the dance floor. I don't know how long we danced. I'm sure it was over my 30 minutes, but it kept Isaac away from the shot pong table. Eventually, I needed a break. I waved a hand at my face and pointed off the dance floor. He nodded and took my hand, leading me off the floor and towards the drink station. Shit. He handed me a bottle of water before pouring himself a rum and coke. I had tried. I checked the seal on the bottle, making sure it hadn't been opened, and then opened it myself. I took a long drink. I was sweating a lot. I reached back and pulled the mass of hair off my neck. I wish I hadn't worn a long-sleeved shirt. I wished I knew where to put my jacket without it getting stolen. Isaac leaned into me so I could hear him over the music. "I'm going to go check out some games," he told me. My eyes darted around the room. I spotted Ethan sitting on a couch and talking with a group of people. I nodded to Isaac. "I'll see you later. Thanks for the dance, Red." He disappeared back toward the game room. I made my way over to Ethan and tapped him on the shoulder. He looked up at me, smiling, his cheeks a little pink, though his eyes were clear as glass. I leaned down and whispered into his ear, "Your turn." His head jerked back from me. I stood up, not wanting him to get that good of a look at the girls. He got to his feet, checked his watch, and looked at me puzzled. He leaned in, talking into my ear. "You've had him all this time?" I pressed my cheek against his so we could talk. "Yeah, he had 3 shots when I found him. We've been dancing since then, but he just made himself a drink." Ethan suddenly seemed to tackle me. His body slammed into mine, his arms wrapping around me, squeezing tight. We stumbled, but he managed to keep us upright. "Beautiful, you are amazing. It's been an hour and a half. Normally, we'd be pulling him out of a fight by now." "Don't thank me yet. He just went to check out the games." I hugged him back. The twins really were affectionate. I was getting used to it. Hell, I was really starting to like it. I felt Ethan nod against my head. "I'm going to buy you some jewelry, woman," Ethan declared, before surprising me by kissing my forehead before heading in the direction Isaac had taken. I took a drink and looked around. It was really hot in here. I headed for the front door. I wanted some air. The outside air was cold and made the sweat on my skin chilled instantly, but I didn't want to go back in yet. I leaned out over the railing of the porch, looking at a cat that seemed to be sleeping through the party. "Lexi!" I knew that bark. I looked up to see Zeke across the lawn standing with a group of guys around a black muscle car. Zeke waved me over before taking a drink from his beer. I went down the stairs around a couple making out and crossed the lawn. I stepped up to the group of guys.
Zeke wrapped his arm around my shoulders, bringing my side against his. I took a peek up at him. He seemed completely sober.
Guys, this is Lexi.
Zeke gestured with the hand that held his beer bottle. I waved at the guys. They all seemed big and scary. A lot like Zeke, actually.
If you see someone messing with her, you kick their ass.
I elbowed him in the side and glared up at him. He grunted, then looked down at me, then back to the group.
Okay, fine. If you see someone messing with her, watch for a minute to see if she kicks his ass. If she's trying and can't, then you kick their ass.
Everyone burst out laughing. Zeke looked down at me, his brow drawn together.
Where have you been all night?
I had Isaac, I explained, gesturing toward the house. I kept him dancing as long as I could, but it's freaking hot in there. I wrapped my hair in my hands and lifted the mass off my neck.
Wait, you had Isaac this whole time?
Zeke asked, eyes wide. Yep, he was mostly sober when I last saw him. I waved a hand at my neck.
Isn't that your friend that always gets in fights at these parties?
The guy with the shaved head asked. Zeke nodded. The guy looked surprised.
I thought he just wasn't here tonight.
I was keeping him busy. I switched my hair to my other hand. Seriously, does anyone have a rubber band or something? One of the guys dug into their pockets.
My girl always forgets her hair ties.
He pulled out a tie and reached across the group to hand it to me.
I'm always carrying extras for her.
He shrugged. The other guys laughed at him. His cheeks turned pink. You, sir, are the world's best boyfriend, I exclaimed, putting my hair into a ponytail. I looked at the other guys. That man, I pointed to the guy with the pink face, knows how to keep a woman happy, I declared, finishing with my hair. And probably in more ways than one. They all burst out laughing. I tilted my chin toward the car engine. What are you guys doing?
I'm just ogling my dream car,
Zeke admitted. A '67 Chevy Impala? I asked, feeling everyone's eyes on me. Zeke raised an eyebrow at me. If you're not dating her, can I? One of the guys asked. Everyone burst out laughing, including me. Zeke didn't find it funny. He glared at the guy.
Don't even think about it, Ian.
Zeke shot at his friend.
I know you too well, man.
The guy, Ian, chuckled, admitting that Zeke was right. I rolled my eyes at them. Zeke gave me a squeeze to get my attention.
I didn't know you liked cars,
Zeke said. I shrugged. I don't know a lot. I know I like the sound of the old muscle cars. I leaned into him as I stage whispered, I only knew the car because it's the same one on that show Supernatural. Zeke burst out laughing. The other guys groaned. You gave us hope, Lexi, one of them accused me. Sorry. I smiled at them, but they didn't seem to care.
So, you managed to keep Isaac sober?
Zeke asked. I nodded.
I really appreciate that, Lexi. We haven't been able to enjoy a party for a couple years now.
I snorted at him. It really wasn't that hard. Ethan said he's buying me jewelry, I informed him. Zeke smirked.
I'll buy you shoes,
he offered. I looked at him as if he was insane. How about you find out why my blazer shakes when I grow over 70, I countered. Zeke gave me a big smile, with teeth and everything. I'd never seen his teeth before.
Deal.
Wait, you'd rather have your car fixed than shoes? The guy Ian asked, not quite believing it. I nodded. He looked at Zeke as if he was in pain. What the fuck, man? Where have you been hiding her all my life?
As far from you as possible.
Zeke shot back, completely serious. Everyone laughed. I just rolled my eyes again. Zeke's friends started asking questions about the blazer. When did it shake? What kind of shaking it did? I described it as best I could. They debated the problem, then started talking about other cars. I was starting to get cold, so I poked Zeke in the side to get his attention. He bent down, bringing his ear to me. I'm getting cold, so I'm going back inside. Do you know where the others are? I asked, tucking my hands in my pockets.
Last I saw, Miles was on the second floor in a sitting area with a bunch of his gaming friends.
I nodded that I heard him. I said bye to Zeke's friends and headed back into the house. The party was still in full swing. I managed to get past the dance floor without anyone trying to grope me. Yay! I found the stairs and slipped past a flirting couple. I found Miles in the second-story sitting room with a group of people. I stepped into the room and paused. They all seemed to be in the middle of a card game. Miles looked up and saw me standing in the doorway. Come on in, Lexi. He gave me a big smile. I walked in and took the only empty chair. Everyone, this is Lexi. I waved at everyone and watched Miles as the group continued playing. I'm kicking down the door, he announced, picking up a card that said door. He tossed down a card with a funny-looking monster on it. He pointed out several of his cards to the others. I have enough. I defeat the monster. Earning another point, this brings me to 10. I win. The others groaned and began picking up their cards. What are you guys playing? I asked, watching as they began setting up another game. It's called Munchkin, Miles explained. Basically, you're in a dungeon full of doors and monsters. You collect armor and weapons as you go. He held out a character card for me. His character happened to be a girl. You can either knock down a door and take on a monster, or loot the room you're in and get an item. He held up a monster card and pointed at the number in the corner. This is the number of attack points you need to kill the monster. You get those from items you've gotten, or you can team up with other people. Or they can sabotage you, offered the only other girl in the group. You're trying to get 10 victory points. The first person to 10 wins. Okay, that sounds fun. Can I play? Everyone nodded. They finished setting up the game. Then it was all-out war. I kept picking at Miles, throwing curses and poisons at him. I wasn't even trying to win. I just went after Miles. Lexi, you're killing me here, Miles groaned as I stripped him of his armor for the third time. Whenever I got a good card, I made a little giggle. Miles started to hate that sound. It went on for an hour, till finally I formed an alliance with the only other girl and took down a monster. She won. Miles threw his cards down and glared at me, but the effect was ruined by his smile. That is just cruel, Lexi. I snickered at him. Everyone began to clean up for another game. Where have you been, anyway? I managed to keep Isaac mostly sober for a while, and I handed him off to Ethan. Went outside to cool off and ran into Zeke. I shrugged. Zeke told me you were up here, so here I am. I put my cards back in the right pile and looked up. Miles was looking at me strangely. You managed to keep Isaac sober? I nodded. Mostly for about 90 minutes, yeah. He blinked at me. You're a miracle worker. You have no idea how much that means to us, he told me plainly. I rolled my eyes. Ethan said he's buying me jewelry. Zeke is fixing my truck. I think I'm getting the idea. Miles smiled at me. I'll be your IT guy any time, he told me simply. I smiled big at him. Sounds good to me, I told him honestly. I had a new computer I really didn't want to fuck up. I got to my feet, wanting to move. Do you know where any of the others are? Miles shook his head apologetically. I pulled out my phone and texted Asher. Alexis, where are you? Asher, Isaac duty in the kitchen. I'm bored out of my mind. Alexis, want some company? Asher, of course. I smiled to myself and said goodbye to everyone still at the coffee table. I headed downstairs. I was making my way across the crowded room when an arm snagged me around the waist. Hold on, sugar. Where you running off to? Some guy I'd never met stepped around me, pulling me close. I leaned back away from his tequila breath. "Let go of me," I told him clearly, in case he was drunk.
"Don't be like that. My name is Brandon. What's yours?"
I looked around and saw Ethan heading my way through the crowd, his face dark. I looked back to the guy touching me. "Brandon Zimmer?" I asked, wanting to be sure. The guy smiled at me, showing all teeth.
"That's right. Do you want a drink?"
I smiled sweetly up at him, my hands going to his shoulders. I slammed my knee right up into his balls. He sucked in air and dropped like a stone. People spread out, most of them laughing at the guy on the floor. Ethan reached me, laughing so hard he doubled over. He pulled out his cell phone and took a photo of the now fetal Brandon Zimmer. The guy was starting to cry. Ethan's eyes watered as he did something with his phone.
"Oh, Zeke is going to love this."
It wasn't a minute later that I felt the floor shaking as Zeke came running inside, several of his friends following. The crowd parted for them like water, and suddenly he was standing next to me, his hand on the back of my neck. I felt his eyes running over me, but I just watched, smiling, as Brandon was moaning on the floor.
"What did he do?"
Zeke asked. Ethan was wiping tears away as he tried to get control of himself. I smiled sweetly up at Zeke. He grabbed my waist, wouldn't let go, and offered me a drink. I explained simply. "You said Brandon Zimmer, right?" Zeke smiled down at me, big with teeth again.
"I said Brandon Zimmer,"
he confirmed, before squatting down near the guy's head. He slapped the guy on the cheek, getting his attention.
"Hey, Brandon, didn't we tell you to stop coming to these parties?"
Zeke growled at him. He began patting the guy down and pulled out a small bottle of pills. Zeke looked like he was going to kill someone. He straightened again before gently nudging me over to make room.
"Get him out of here, guys. I'll go flush these."
The guys I had met earlier with Zeke reached down, lifted the still whimpering guy up, and headed out the door. A couple guys stayed behind.
"Let's do a quick look around, make sure there aren't any unconscious girls."
The guys agreed and headed out in different directions. Zeke looked back down to me.
"You good?"
"I'm good. I was headed over to see Asher," I explained, looking over at Ethan, whose face was dark red from laughing. He was finally getting control of himself. Zeke gave my neck a squeeze before heading off down a hallway towards what I assumed was the bathroom.
"I'm sending that photo to Asher. He's going to love this,"
Ethan told me, his voice cracking. I shook my head as he disappeared back into the crowd. Moving through the crowd was much easier now. No one tried to grope or stop me. I found Asher leaning against the counter, his cell phone in his hand. I hopped up on the counter next to him and nudged his arm. His face was a little flushed, his smile a little too big. Asher was buzzed at the very least. I found Isaac at the kitchen table playing quarters. His face was bright red, his eyes glossy. I could tell he was wasted from here. That was before he yelled and threw his arms in the air as if he'd just won the lotto. Yeah, he had to have been buzzed on the dance floor. That settled, I decided to forget about it.
"Allie girl, did you do this?"
Asher asked, holding up the photo of Brandon Zimmer curled in the fetal position. He grabbed me and wouldn't let go, I explained, and it was Brandon Zimmer. Asher hopped up on the counter beside me and bumped his shoulder against mine.
"Allie girl, you always surprise me."
He smiled down at me. He was handsome with that smile. "Are you drunk, Asher?" He smiled as he did something with his phone.
"Not really, just a buzz and I'm tired,"
he explained, kicking his foot against the bottom cabinet.
"We never usually stay this long. We usually have to take Isaac out by now."
"Maybe this time he won't start a fight," I offered, hopefully. Asher shook his head.
"He will. It's getting close."
He gestured toward Isaac, who was resting his temple against his hand with his elbow on the table.
When he gets quiet, it's usually the first sign.
Why come to the parties at all? I asked. If it was really that bad, then they needed to keep Isaac away from these situations.
He'd come down on his own even if we weren't here,
Asher explained to me.
He needs to slow down, though, or he's going to be too sick tomorrow for training.
Isaac was just playing now, not really talking. I hopped down, went and grabbed another unopened water bottle and came back into the kitchen. I walked around the table into Isaac's eyesight. He gave me a lopsided grin.
"Hey, Red, how are you doing?"
he asked, his words slurring. I smiled and handed him the bottle of water. I leaned in and whispered, "Cookie Monster, can you drink some water for me?" I asked sweetly. He leaned back and eyed me suspiciously. "You don't have to stop drinking. I just want you to drink this too." I kept my voice sweet. He pursed his lips together and opened the bottle.
"Thank you, sweetie."
I pushed some of his hair back from his face before I walked around the table. I hopped back on the counter next to Asher.
"How did you do that?"
Asher asked. "Do what?" I asked, keeping my eyes on Isaac.
"How do you get him to listen to you?"
He was genuinely curious. "Boobs," I told him plainly. I took my eyes off Isaac and looked at Asher. "And big eyes, soft voice, and a good pout if he resists." Asher chuckled.
"So basically being a girl?"
I nodded, smiling. "Yep." We were quiet for a while as we watched Isaac. Asher nudged my shoulder again. I looked up to see he'd moved closer.
"I'm sorry about what my sister did to you,"
he whispered, his eyes running over my face. I shrugged. "It's not your fault," I countered.
"You're not angry?"
He looked at me, surprised. I smiled. "I didn't look too bad, right?" I asked, only half joking. He snorted.
"No, Allie, you didn't look bad at all,"
he reassured me as he shook his head. I smirked up at him. "Now, if I did look bad, then I'd be pissed." He burst out laughing.
"It was still messed up."
I looked up at him and dove in. "What is her deal?" Asher sighed, looking back at Isaac.
"I don't really know."
He tilted his head, thinking.
"I can tell you what I think."
"Spill. Any insight would help," I admitted. I wanted to understand why his sister came at me, and then maybe I could get her to stop.
"Well, our dad didn't pay her much attention. He was always just about me and my shit."
Asher shrugged.
"I never understood that, but that's the way he's always been."
Asher licked his lips and looked down at my knee next to his.
"Our mom always split her attention between us. Then Mom got sick. She died, and Dad is gone all the time."
"So you think she's angry?" I asked, needing more information. Asher shrugged, looking me in the eye.
"I know she's angry. Hell, I am too, but she's taking everything out on other people, and that I don't get."
He sighed.
"She's my twin, and I don't even recognize her anymore."
"Wait, you're twins?" I asked, surprised. "How many twins were in this town?" Asher smiled down at me.
"Fraternal, yeah."
He went back to watching Isaac. I leaned my head against his shoulder. "I'm sorry about your mom." He sighed wearily.
"Sorry about your dad."
"What was she like?" I was genuinely curious. I barely had any good memories left of my mother, at least any I could remember right now. He was quiet for a while. I shifted my head so I could look at his face. He swallowed hard and clenched his jaw before answering me.
"Ask me again when I haven't been drinking, Allie girl."
He looked down at me, smiling sadly.
"I'll tell you then."
I nodded and wrapped my arms around his and gave a squeeze. "Sorry."
"Don't be."
His ocean blue eyes were full of shadows my questions had brought on. I needed to fix that. I smiled up at him wickedly. "Do you want to mess with Isaac when he passes out tonight?" I asked, hopefully. "I'm thinking something involving a stun gun and an alarm clock for the morning, and a hand in warm water tonight, at the very least." Asher burst out laughing. the shadows leaving his eyes. "You and that damn smile of yours. It's going to get me into trouble," he mumbled under his breath. "Maybe, but it'll be fun trouble," I offered, still smiling. He chuckled again. Asher had a nice laugh. He looked over at Isaac and frowned. "I need to go to the bathroom. Can you watch him for a minute?" "Yep." Asher hopped down off the counter and smirked at me. "By the way, I sent that photo to Dylan." My mouth dropped. "The big screen one?" His eyes went wide. "No, the Brandon Zimmer one," he reassured me. "You didn't." Asher snickered. "With the tag, 'What happens when someone touches Lexi without permission?'" He smiled big as I groaned. "We're not even dating, Ash," I pointed out as he headed out of the kitchen. I took a drink from my water and put the lid back on. I watched the game and bunched the heel of my boot against the cabinet. My phone vibrated. I winced before answering. "Hello." "What happened?" Dylan's husky voice was hard in my ear. He didn't sound too happy. "I don't know what you're talking about." I tried for innocence, but it came out more smart-ass. "The photo Asher sent me, this guy grabbed you?" I sighed. Mental note. Right on Ash's face after he passes out tonight. "Oh, he put his arm around my waist and wouldn't let go. So I need him in the balls," I said casually. It really wasn't that big of a deal. "Good." His voice was back to his usual husky. "Who was he, anyway?" "Brandon Zimmer." Dylan burst out laughing. I smiled as I waited till he was done. It was about a full minute. Zeke filled me in on his party habits. "Oh, Lexi, that is awesome." His voice was still a little breathless from laughing. "So I've been told." I smiled to myself. I took a look at Isaac and noticed he had started talking to a girl. Maybe we'd get a reprieve. "How was the game?" "It sucked. We lost. A couple of our guys decided to wing it during some important plays," he grumbled. "I'm sorry." It's over. How'd Asher do?" "He did pretty well from what I saw. Only a couple sacks in the whole game. Any fumbles weren't due to a bad throw. No interceptions." I debated telling him about the billboard stunt for a second and decided against it. He didn't need to know about it. "We did win, though." "That win puts them in the playoffs this year." He grunted. I raised an eyebrow. "I might get to see a game with you after all." "Why are you grunting?" I asked suspiciously. "Please tell me you were lifting something." "I was stretching, honey," he said, his voice growing warm. "I had a couple bad hits tonight, so I'm not moving so great right now." "Take some aspirin and suck it up." He burst out laughing. "You know, most girls would be all, poor baby, but not you." It sounded like he was smiling. "Yeah, well, I'm not like most girls." Isaac took a shot. I decided to keep my eyes on him. No, you aren't." His voice sounded like it wasn't a bad thing. I smiled, but I wanted to know. I didn't like not knowing where I stood. "Is that good or bad?" I bit my lip, waiting. "Oh, it's good." I smiled and tried not to get too excited about it. Isaac drank another shot. "You never did tell me about your yards per carry." He chuckled in my ear. 7. Wow, that was a damn good number. "And you guys lost? Does the rest of the team suck?" I asked, still watching Isaac. He laughed. "No, everyone just had a bad night." He took a deep breath. "It just means football will be over soon and I'll have more time to see you." I smiled. Isaac was quiet again. Where the hell was Asher? "We haven't even gone on a date yet," I pointed out, as butterflies fluttered in my stomach. I was watching as the guy to the left of Isaac saw me, leaned over and said something to Isaac. Isaac went still. "Oh, come on." "What did you say?" Isaac asked, clearly, his face growing dark. Oh, shit.
You don't fucking say that shit about her.
He growled at the other guy.
I have liked everything I've heard so far,
Dylan said in my ear. Shit. Hang on, I need to go stop a fight before it happens. Isaac bolted out of his chair, leaped over the table, and slammed down on the guy. The table knocked over. The chair broke under their combined weight. Shit. I dropped my phone on the counter and jumped to the floor as Isaac sat on the guy, his fist coming down fast, over and over, as he pummeled the guy. Okay, I'll admit the guy probably deserved the first couple punches, but then Isaac was scaring the shit out of me. Girls were screaming, people were yelling. I didn't know where the guys were, so I did the first thing I could think of. I strode over to Isaac, grabbed his ear, and twisted hard. He stopped hitting the guy as he bent towards me.
Ow, 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 fuck, Red.
I kept a tight hold on his ear. Get up, I told him calmly, my voice hard, though inside I was kind of shaking. Watching Isaac pummel that guy into the floor really hit home that he was a trained fighter. Isaac got to his feet, leaning his head down so not to yank on his ear more. We're going outside for you to cool off. I began pulling Isaac towards the back door. I saw Asher pushing through the crowd, his eyes wide. Asher, grab my phone, check the other guy, and then get your ass out here. And bring Zeke, I ordered as I opened the door. I made Isaac follow me outside. He shut the door behind us. I pulled him off the porch and halfway across the large backyard before letting him go.
What the fuck, Lexi?
He yelled at me, his hand going to his red ear. That's what I was going to say to you, I asked, my voice hard. I crossed my arms over my chest, watching as he kept pacing. What the fuck, Isaac?
That guy was talking shit about you,
he shouted, gesturing towards the house. I nodded. And that's why I let you get a few swings in, I shouted back. He blinked hard at me, so I kept going in a normal voice. But this wasn't about me. This was about you looking for a fight. Isaac waved his hand dismissively at me as he started pacing. That wasn't going to fly with me. I stepped forward, holding on to my temper. I needed to get him to talk. What's going on, Isaac? I heard the screen door open and close. Isaac turned around and glared at me.
If I don't want to tell you something, respect that. I'll tell you when I'm ready.
He shot my own words back at me. Shit, that just bit me in the ass. He didn't want to talk. I remembered what Ethan said about finding another outlet. Asher stepped up next to me, holding my phone to his ear. Zeke stepped up on my other side. I didn't look away from Isaac and his pacing. Which one of you is up for sparring? I asked the guys next to me. Isaac didn't hear us. He kept pacing back and forth, his hands running through his hair, his fingers digging into his scalp.
I'm sober,
Zeke volunteered. I nodded and pointed at Isaac. You want to fight? You're sparring with Zeke, I shouted at Isaac to get his attention. He stopped pacing and looked at me, trying to figure out if I was serious. Zeke smirked and stepped forward, stretching his arms and loosening his muscles. You're looking for a fight, Isaac? This is the only one you're getting tonight, I told him simply, my voice hard. Isaac started eyeing Zeke, who now stood across from us on our left, Isaac on the right. Let's see who can drop the other guy to the grass the most. Isaac scoffed at me in disbelief.
He's almost twice my size,
he complained. I smirked. Then you'll just have to work harder now, won't you? I shot back sarcastically. I heard Asher smother a laugh next to me. No full-strength hits, I declared, looking at both of them. Go. I backed up a couple more steps, and Asher did the same. Zeke and Isaac went at it. Holy shit. Isaac went in hard and fast, trying to distract Zeke enough to drop him. Zeke wasn't having it. He moved much faster than I thought he could. He was a big guy, and big guys usually couldn't move that fast.
She's fine. Not a scratch, not a bruise. She split it up fast and got Isaac out of there.
Asher was talking on my phone. I wasn't really paying attention. I was still stunned by the way the guys were trying to take each other down. Remind me not to piss off Zeke, I mumbled to Asher. Asher snickered. You piss off Zeke on a daily basis, he reminded me, and we all love watching it. He held out the phone to me, smiling. Your future boyfriend is still on the phone. I snorted and took the phone. He's met me once and talked to me a few times. He might not like me after tomorrow, I reminded him and myself. Asher gave me a shit-eating grin. I don't know. When I picked up the phone, he said, "Where's my girl?" My stomach fluttered again, and I fought off a smile. I told him you were stopping a fight and had your hands full. He got pissed at me for not taking care of it. I told him you got there first and had it taken care of by the time I got there. I playfully narrowed my eyes at him. Watch the sparring and stop talking about my love life, I shot at him, smiling. Asher burst out laughing as I put the phone to my ear before stepping away. I'm back. What just happened? Dylan's husky voice was calm, but it was a forced calm. Isaac started beating the crap out of someone. I jumped in, yanked him away, and out the door. Zeke and Isaac are sparring now in the backyard to give Isaac a better outlet for his anger or whatever this is. There was silence for a few heartbeats. How did you yank Isaac out? I snickered. I yanked and twisted his ear until he came with me, I told him in my sweet voice. He was quiet for a while. My heart sank. Still think me not being like other girls is a good thing? I asked, pretty sure he was going to bail on tomorrow. Lexi, I love that you can kick a guy in the balls, yank a guy out of a fight by the car, and still sound cute on the phone. I smiled a big smile as my heart melted. Okay, I might be in trouble here. Really? What's wrong with you? I said, half joking, not knowing what else to say. You should be running in the other direction. He laughed. I like a challenge. His voice had gone soft, making me bite my lip. Zeke won, Asher announced. I turned around and watched Isaac pick himself back up. I should probably keep an eye on the guys sparring. Isaac's drunk, and we don't want any accidents, I said, concerned at the gleam in Isaac's eye. You probably should. You might need to do some more ear pulling, Dylan admitted. I'll see you tomorrow at 7. Sounds like a plan. Then I remembered something. You might want to expect the guys, too. They're going to try and give you a hard time. He chuckled. Bring it. I laughed, feeling myself blushing. Night. Night. I hung up. When I was sure my blush was gone, I turned back around. I was just in time to watch Isaac drop Zeke. Holy shit. Zeke went down hard. Isaac won, Zeke won, Asher announced, turning to me as I came back. How's the future boyfriend? A little crazy considering he's still interested, I admitted, smirking. Asher chuckled. My phone vibrated. I checked it. Ethan. What happened? Where is everyone? Alexis. Out back. We're wearing Isaac out. Get out here. It wasn't long before the screen door opened behind us. I turned and watched Ethan and Miles heading across the lawn. Ethan was frowning as we watched Isaac get dropped again. Zeke 2, Isaac 1, Asher announced. Whose idea was this? Miles asked, stepping up on the other side of Ethan. Mine. I looked down the line to see Miles smiling. Good idea, Lexi. You know what the funny part is? I asked, smiling mischievously. Isaac dropped again, hard. Ouch. Zeke 3, Isaac 1, Asher called. What's the funny part, beautiful? Isaac still has to go to training in the morning. The guys burst out laughing as we watched Zeke drop. This time it took him a second to get his air back. Zeke 3, Isaac 2. This time Miles called it. How long are they going? Ethan asked. Till Isaac is done working out his shit tonight, I offered, not really sure if that was a good idea or not. Miles nodded. That sounds good to me. Zeke dropped Isaac again. He landed on his back, hard. Everyone said ouch. Zeke was starting to breathe heavy.
Zeke 4, Isaac 2,
Ethan called. Anyone want to tag in? I asked, worried that Zeke might hurt his hand more.
We're trying to wear him out?
Miles asked. Yep. The guys next to me chuckled. Miles took off his jacket, handed it to me, and headed toward the guys. Zeke and Isaac stepped back from each other. What's so funny? I looked down the line to see them all grinning.
If you think Isaac is fast, wait till you see Miles. Guy's like a fucking eel,
Ethan told me. Zeke headed towards us.
You just can't get your hands on him.
Isaac was frowning at Miles before getting into position. Zeke came back to stand by Asher. I looked over at him. His face was red and he was sweating, but he seemed fine. Zeke, you are fast, I said, watching as Isaac and Miles circled each other. He chuckled.
For my size, yeah,
Zeke admitted.
Wait till you see this.
I watched as they continued circling. Isaac had his hands up like a boxer. Miles just had his hands ready at his waist. Isaac moved to strike Miles. Miles just simply wasn't there anymore. He'd dodged Isaac's fist and quickly used Isaac's own momentum to throw him to the ground. Shit, the boys laughed.
Miles 1, Isaac 0.
Then they really went at it. No matter where Isaac went to grab Miles, he simply slipped through and moved on to a better position, sometimes dropping Isaac and sometimes just making him run after him. I smiled. He was wearing him down fast. See? That right there is what I need to learn.
Come to training and you will,
Zeke said simply.
We'll work you up a program for defense and jiu-jitsu. Throw some Krav Maga and kickboxing in there, then she'll be good to go,
Ethan added, as we watched Miles drop Isaac again. Miles 2, Isaac 0, I called out before answering the guys. Sounds good to me. I'm sure Rory won't mind. Isaac was starting to breathe harder, his arms coming down.
Here comes the takedown,
Asher warned. I didn't look, but it sounded like he was smiling. Isaac went at Miles. Miles grabbed Isaac, twisted, and slipped his leg around the inside of Isaac's. Miles threw Isaac over his hip, using his leg to flip Isaac completely off the ground. Isaac landed hard on his back, Miles lying across his chest, pinning him to the grass. Holy shit! I was pretty sure my mouth had dropped open. The guys snickered. I just watched as Miles got up and headed back toward us. Isaac didn't move. He just kept taking deep breaths. He was done. Give me a minute. I'll see if he's ready to talk. I headed towards the others. When I passed Miles, I smiled at him and handed him his jacket. His face was red and he was sweating, but he seemed fine. He grinned at me as he headed back to the guys. When I reached Isaac, I sat down next to his side and looked at his face. He was just starting to get his breath back. His eyes were closed, his arms out to his sides. Hey, sweetie.
I hate it when Miles makes that move. It makes the world spin,
he groaned, sitting up next to me, his knees spread. I fought off a laugh because it looked pretty cool from my point of view. Ready to talk? I asked, watching his face. His eyes were hard as they met mine.
No, Red,
he said flatly. I nodded. That was okay. He didn't have to. Isaac, you're a trained fighter. Do you understand what that means for the rest of your life outside of the ring? He raised an eyebrow and looked at me. I finally had his attention. If you get into a fight, you could kill someone. And because of that, judges and juries will hold you to a higher standard. If you accidentally kill someone in a fight, you will be prosecuted for it, and you will be found guilty. I simply repeated to him what my kickboxing instructor had told me in LA. You get a lot of training, you get a target on your back if you fuck up. Cookie Monster, if you're going to keep coming to these parties, then you need some rules. He just looked at me. Asher knew you were getting close to a fight before he went to the bathroom. You got quiet, stopped talking to people. Isaac looked down at the grass between his legs again and nodded. If one of us sees you doing that, we're going to suggest that you take a walk. Will you do that for me? Isaac was looking down at the grass in front of him, and he nodded.
And if I don't want to?
He asked, his dark eyes meeting mine. Then it won't be a suggestion. I gestured around the yard. I'll grab that ear and we'll be right back here. You'll be sparring with the guys again until you get whatever it is out of your system. When he didn't look at me, I continued. We're not going to let you destroy your life, so we'll manage whatever this is until you are ready to talk about it. Sound good? Isaac was quiet for a few minutes. That was fine. I wasn't going anywhere. Finally, he looked at me again.
You're right,
he admitted, resigned.
I could really hurt someone, or kill them.
So if one of us says take a walk?
I'll take a walk,
he agreed. Thank you, Cookie Monster. He got to his feet and reached down to me. I took his hands and he pulled me up to my feet. After I was standing, he pulled me into a hug. I wrapped my arms around him and squeezed back.
You're a pain in the ass, Red,
he whispered into my hair. I snickered, especially when I'm right. He huffed before pulling away. We headed back to the others. I was tired and done for the night. I wanted my bed at Miles's house and sleep. We have a new rule in place, I said, getting their attention.
If I do that quiet thing at another party, tell me to take a walk,
Isaac said, his voice tired.
And if you don't?
Zeke asked, frowning at him. Isaac snorted.
Get Red. She'll get me outside, he admitted. There might be more sparring involved then.
Ethan snorted.
Good, because you are rusty as fuck,
Ethan said emphatically.
Mom's never going to let you back into the ring like that.
Isaac snorted.
Everyone ready to leave?
Zeke asked, looking down the line. Everyone nodded. We headed inside. It was quieter. The party was winding down. When we reached the big room, I paused. I'm going to use the bathroom real quick. I'll meet you guys outside, I said. They all nodded and headed for the door. I went down the hall next to the kitchen and found the bathroom. When I was done, I opened the door and froze. Jason was standing there, his hands on the doorframe, blocking off the hallway.
I've been looking for you,
Jason said. He blinked hard. His voice changed.
Now we're going to have fun.
It wasn't Jason's voice anymore. It was Bitch Ghost. My heart slammed in my chest. He or she tackled me. I hit the floor hard, my head hitting the tile, my back in agony. Adrenaline slammed through me, and suddenly I didn't hurt anymore. I wasn't tired. I was pissed. When Jason's body sat up, with his legs straddling my waist, I made a fist with both hands and brought it down towards Jason's groin. Bitch Ghost grabbed my arms before I connected. She forced my arms back over my head. I headbutted Jason's face. His nose burst. Blood poured. It probably hurt like hell, but it didn't stop Bitch Ghost. She dropped all of Jason's weight onto me, pinning me by the elbows. I struggled against the weight. It was getting harder to breathe. She let go of my right arm and pulled back the sleeve of my left. I brought a fist down on Jason's face, again and again. It did nothing but split Jason's lip and give him a black eye. She reached for my beads. My chest burned as terror ran through me. I screamed, "Asher! Downstairs bathroom!" Bitch Ghost ripped my bracelets apart. Beads flew everywhere. I vaguely heard them bouncing off the tile. Suddenly my head was in a vice, my pulse in my ears, as I felt Bitch Ghost pressing against my mind. It wasn't as bad as last time, but that's like saying this stab wound was less likely to kill me than the other. Jason's hands wrapped around my face as she brought his body in closer. I bucked, trying to throw his weight off of me as my barriers held against her. Suddenly Jason's weight was pulled off me. I looked up to see Asher and Zeke slamming Jason against the opposite door. "That's not Jason," I croaked, getting to my feet. I darted into the hallway where they were struggling to hold him. Jason's body bucked, bringing his body off the door. They slammed him back, this time through the door. Ethan, Isaac, and Miles were running down the hall towards us. I followed Asher and Zeke into the room where they grappled with Bitch Ghost, her energy making Jason's body stronger than he should be. Get him on his back on the floor, I shouted. Zeke and Asher glanced at me, then at each other. They got a better grip on Jason's body, Asher on one side, Zeke on the other. They both kicked the back of Jason's knees. They dropped like a rock. Zeke and Asher's body weight dragged Jason down, landing on top of Zeke and Asher. Bitch Ghost was trying to break free of their grip. Heart racing, I jumped on top of Jason, pinning his chest with my body weight. The others ran in and were struggling to pin his arms. Someone get his mouth open! Ethan's hands went to Jason's face and pried his mouth open. I reached down, jerked the vial from my necklace. I popped it open with my thumb, then poured the salted holy water down Jason's throat. Bitch Ghost gave out a scream that was cut off when Jason's body went limp. The salted holy water had forced Bitch Ghost out of Jason's body. Trying to catch my breath, I looked down at Zeke and Asher over Jason's shoulders. They were out of breath, too. Zeke met my eyes.
Can we do Plan B now?
He asked, seriously. I nodded and tried to get off Jason's chest. Hands steadied me as I wobbled. I looked up to see Miles holding me. Ethan and Isaac pulled Jason's body off of the others. Zeke and Asher groaned as they got to their feet. My mind ran through Bitch Ghost's memories, looking for her gravesite. St. Michael's, 4th row in, north corner lot. I shook my head, pushing them away again. When everyone got their breath back, they all looked at me. We're ending this now, I announced, my voice hard. Everyone nodded. We'll need shovels, salt, gas, and a lighter. I turned around, strode out the door and through the house, the boys right on my heels. We were walking across the now empty lawn before anyone spoke again.
Miles, Isaac, go get the salt from the house and pick up a lighter.
Zeke took charge.
We'll get some shovels and the fuel.
Wait, where is the grave? Miles asked. Everyone cursed. I know where it is, I told them, opening the door to the blazer. They looked at me quizzically. I waved a hand. It's part of Bitch Ghost's memory download. They accepted that. Everyone agreed to meet at the graveyard. Be careful, she has enough juice to jump another person, I warned them, before we split up. Asher, Zeke, and Ethan climbed into my blazer. My heart still racing, I took off like a bat out of hell.
Easy there, beautiful. We need to get there in one piece.
Ethan warned me, his hand on my shoulder.
Where are we going to find shovels at this time of night?
Asher asked, his voice tense. We don't have to. There's a groundskeeper shed at the cemetery. That's where they'll keep the shovels. I pulled onto the highway. They'll probably have a gas can with the lawnmower. I wanted to push the pedal down, but the gauge said I was already doing 10 over the speed limit. Was the gauge even right? Are we really doing 65? I don't think that's right. It feels too slow. Tension hung in the air as I drove to the cemetery.
How are you going to feel about this, Lexi? You don't know where she's going.
Asher asked from the back seat. I didn't want to think about that. I couldn't. Bitch Ghost was pushing things too far. It was time to push back. I think she forfeited that consideration tonight, I mumbled, as I finally pulled into the cemetery. I pulled to a stop near the groundskeeper shed. I didn't even bother shutting off the blazer. I was out and running to the door in a blink. The door was locked. I immediately slammed my shoulder into it. It didn't budge. I was stepping back to do it again when hands caught me.
Let's have someone with a lot more mass do the braking, huh, sweetie?
Asher suggested, pulling me away from the door, his hands giving me a squeeze. Zeke stepped towards the door. Why the hell didn't I think of that? I really needed to calm down. I focused on taking deep, calming breaths as Zeke broke through the door with his shoulder. I darted into the shed behind Zeke. They grabbed the shovels while I looked for the lawnmower and the gas can. I found the can, but it was empty. I cursed.
What's wrong?
Ethan asked, stepping up to me. No gas.
We can siphon the gas from the truck. We just need a tube,
he offered. I looked around the shed, my eyes finding a garden hose. There's a box cutter in the toolbox in the back. We can cut the garden hose, I told him, already running out the door and to the back of the blazer. The back gate was already open, so I jumped in and crawled to where I kept my dad's toolbox. I opened it and found the box cutter. I ran back past Zeke and Asher, who were loading the shovels into the truck. Ethan took the box cutter from me.
Let me do it. You're shaking so much that you'll just cut yourself.
Ethan lectured as he measured out the length he wanted.
We still need to dig, beautiful,
he told me, cutting the hose.
It's still going to be a while. Calm down, or you'll wear yourself out before we're even done.
I nodded. He was right. I focused on taking deep, calming breaths as we all got into the truck again. I kept breathing like that as I drove to the ghost's gravesite. Zeke looked at me confused.
What's wrong? Why are you breathing like that?
He snapped.
She's having a big adrenaline rush. I told her to calm down.
Ethan explained. Zeke just went back to looking out the window. I stopped the truck. We got out, the boys grabbing the shovels as I led them to the grave. It was exactly where Bitch Ghost's memories told me. It had a modest headstone. Asher used the flashlight on his keys to look at the name. That's her, I confirmed, looking away from the name. I couldn't think of her as having a name right now.
Move, Allie,
Asher told me. I got off the grave as Asher and Zeke started digging. Ethan pulled me away from the grave back to the blazer. He opened the gas cap and started explaining what he was doing. He put the hose into the gas tank, the gas can on the ground. Then he sucked on the end of the hose. It only took a few seconds. Then he was spitting out a little gas and put the end of the hose into the gas can.
Oh, that's disgusting,
Ethan told me, making a face.
You owe me cookies for this.
I gave him a small smile, my stomach in knots. My hands were starting to shake again. I didn't have my beads. She was still out there. She was going to realize what we were doing. When Ethan thought we had enough fuel, he took the hose out of the tank and put the cap back on. Now that we had the gas, we both grabbed shovels and started digging. We had to get down 8 feet, burn a body, and then put all that dirt back before morning. I lost myself in the rhythm of digging. I didn't want to think about what I was doing. I hated what I was doing. The dead should be allowed to rest, but this bitch wasn't giving me a choice. I wasn't aware that the others arrived until Isaac was taking my shovel from me. I blinked up at him, confused. His eyes ran over me, his face worried.
Go sit down, Red. I'll take over.
I bit the corner of my lip and looked at the others. Asher and Zeke were in the grave, too. No one else would fit. They worked fast. We were already down 3 feet. I nodded and let go of my shovel. Isaac gave me a boost so I could climb out of the grave. When I had nothing to do, my mind ran around in circles. Miles and Ethan stayed close by, keeping an eye out for anyone coming. This was wrong, wasn't it? I didn't know where I was sending this girl. But she wasn't giving me much of a choice. Well, she was. Be possessed the rest of my life or burn her body. Not much of a choice. Without something to do, my hands started shaking again. I knew I had to do this to keep people safe from her, but it didn't stop my stomach from knotting tightly. I knew exactly when the ghost became aware of what we were doing. We had 3 feet left, and it was as if a bell was hit, only you couldn't hear it. I felt the vibration along my skin. I instantly knew she had another body and was heading here. She's coming, I told the guys. Miles came over to me.
How do you know?
He asked, voice gentle. I can feel her, and she's getting close, I said, my voice shaking. I started going over the plan I've been making since I was jumped, how I was going to keep her out. I went over it again and again. Miles took my hand and squeezed it reassuringly.
We're here, Lexi. You're not alone in this,
Miles told me calmly. It helped me calm down a bit more, knowing they were there. If she jumped me again, the guys knew what to do. I wasn't at risk of dying in an emergency room.
Lexi, you're freezing.
Was I? I didn't really notice. I was watching the roads, trying to figure out where she was coming from. Still going over my plan again and again. It helped keep the fear from crashing down on me. Miles put my hand between both of his, trying to warm it. His hands stopped rubbing.
Lexi, where are your bracelets?
Everyone looked at me. I'd never seen fear on one of their faces before. Now I saw it on all of them. She broke them back at the house, I told them, my hands shaking again. Curses went around as the guys went back to work, digging faster. Ethan walked over to us.
What about your necklaces?
I swallowed hard. I used the holy water on Jason and the other is just general protection, I explained, squeezing Miles's hand.
That means she can jump you, right?
Ethan asked, his jaw clenching. I felt her enter the cemetery. Yeah, I pulled my hands from Miles's, looking out at the road.
Then what the hell is the plan if she gets here before we're done?
Ethan asked me, his voice getting low. I try to keep her from jumping me while you guys salt and burn her bones, I admitted. Headlights glowed on the road, the driver going too fast on the gravel. I looked at Ethan. His face was dark. Why do you think I've been so jittery this whole time? I looked back to the road as the car made its way towards us. I recognized that car. Ethan shouted for the guys to dig faster. The red Ford Focus came to a sliding stop. Tara got out of the car, a snarl on her face. Oh, hell no. That bitch was not fucking with my cousin. I suddenly felt solid again, my temper boiling. It felt good right now. If the bitch wanted a fight, she was going to get one. Tara walked around her car, her eyes fixed on me. Salt, then burning, I reminded them before I stepped away. You have about 20 minutes if she gets through me. I met Tara's body halfway to the road. I heard Ethan shouting at the guys, Miles's voice joining in. I didn't hear what they said. My total concentration was in front of me. Get the fuck out of my cousin, bitch, I growled. She smirked, using Tara's face. Gladly. She reached out to grab me. I caught her hand with mine. The world disappeared as we went to war. Adrenaline surged as Bitch Ghost slammed her energy against me. My barriers shook. Pain burst behind my eyes as she tried brute force. I didn't attack her. I had been thinking about this in the back of my mind since she jumped me. I shored up my barriers. I used my memories like stone blocks, reinforcing the weak parts, closing them off before she could use them. I kept breathing as I ignored the pain running through my head. I pushed every emotion I had out of my head, every thought except one. Don't let her in. She sent wave after wave of energy at me, knocking chunks of my barrier away. I kept reinforcing it. When she backed off for a heartbeat, I wrapped myself into a ball, with a hard barrier around me. She slammed through my barriers using everything she had. I felt them like a physical snap as they broke. She poured in. She tried to pour over my soul, drowning me. I sank down in the blackness in my little ball. She thrashed above me as I sank. She couldn't find me. She felt me, but she couldn't find me. That's when I reached for that place inside me where my anger lived. Always there, always waiting. It had been growing ever since she went after Miles. It grew when she went after Zeke. And I let it out. Hot, boiling waves boiled up through her blackness, lighting her up like a torch. She couldn't flee. She could only try to cool my rage. But you can't use rage to stop rage. She changed tactics. She threw her happy, blissful memories around her like a geode hiding in molten rock. I thought of the boys, how they were hurrying to save my ass. I thought of how they had adopted me and made me feel cared for again. It was a powerful memory, hard as diamond. I used that memory like a chisel, and I went a-knockin'. I tore down her walls, grabbed her around the metaphysical neck, and threw her out. I opened my eyes, gasping, my head exploding in pain, disoriented, the world spinning, hot wetness on my face. I couldn't focus. I saw Bitch Ghost's complete shock on Tara's face, my vision watery. Then she snarled and tackled me. My back hit a flat tombstone, stunning me with pain. It gave her the opening she needed. She wrapped her hands around my throat and started to squeeze. I heard shouting around me as I tried to pry her hands off me. I felt feet running through the ground. It was disorienting, like the grass in the cemetery was my skin, and I could feel everyone and everything in it. It was only a flash, and then it was gone. I blinked up at Tara's face. "You fucking bitch!" she growled at me. "You don't deserve to live!" A loud whoosh filled my ears. Tara's body froze above me, a look of pure horror on her face. Her mouth was open in a silent scream as the flames ripped through Bitch Ghost's soul. I heard her screaming, and I was screaming inside with her. With my barriers down, I felt it all. The agony as the fire tore into us. We were going to die, going to be wiped away. There was nothing. Black despair poured through us, shaking our bodies. Our lungs burned as we continued to be torn apart. Tears fell down our face as we felt the end coming. We saw that stone ledge in the dark above the abyss of black. We saw it coming as we burned, singed and ripped. We tried to crawl away from it, fingers digging into the dirt. Only here the dirt was sand, and it wanted to go with you. Our hearts clenched, our limbs shook, our very souls cried out, shivering and shaking as we slipped closer along the stone. Our chest clutched, our heart was slowing, our soul fading. Our feet were off the edge, dangling over that dark pit, our hands clinging to the ledge that was sand-covered rock. No, she was off the ledge. She was desperately clinging to the ledge. I was laying across from her, my eyes on her. I saw the terror in her eyes. I saw the tears. I saw her, as she was in life, as she had been, singing in choir like an angel, helping everyone around her. I saw her at that moment, completely, utterly beautiful and unique. There was no other like Mary Summers. No, no, no! I felt my heart shatter as I realized what I had done. I reached for her and grabbed her hands hard. I couldn't let her go into that nothingness. I couldn't. She was a soul. She didn't deserve that black void. This was wrong. I tried to pull her back. I pulled and pulled, but she was being sucked down into the void. Tears falling, I could barely hold on to her anymore. The pull on her was too strong. Panicking, I met her cerulean blue eyes. They were terrified. I kept trying to pull her back to this world, to keep her here, but she was fading in front of me. Her face was fading, her body, her hands in mine. I tried to keep hold of her. I kept looking her in the eye as she faded into nothing, because no one should die alone. No one should go this way. So I held her gaze, tears falling down my face, as I watched her soul die in front of me on that sandy ledge. Then she was gone. Not even dust remained on the hot wind blowing across the stone. Lightning cracked above me in the silence. I looked up to see the green moving through the clouds. They boiled. That wasn't right. I don't know how I knew, but I knew that wasn't right. I looked around the ledge of the pit. Trees were dead and burnt to a crisp. That wasn't right. I looked up again and understood what I was seeing. Souls that cross over go up through those clouds, but nothing was crossing over. I looked around me at the burnt and dead veil. I saw how the dead came like a movie playing in my head. The veil was thin. It was supposed to allow you to come here. It was the natural order. I don't know how I knew this, I just did, but now the veil was thick and fogged over. I found one last clear spot before it was poured over by fog. The veil was shut. Souls couldn't get inside to cross over naturally. Someone shut them out. It's going to take someone to let them in. At that moment, I have never felt more hatred than I did for the one who did this. This was the reason the area was wrong. This was the reason souls had more energy. I saw it all, understood it all in a heartbeat. Then I was jerked backward, hard. I opened my eyes, not understanding what I was seeing. Stars above, something hard underneath me, my heart being shredded, a heavy weight across me pushing me down. I took great big gulping breaths, trying to ease the burn in my lungs, my throat tight. I was still seeing her eyes as she disappeared, as if she had been nothing. Like she had never loved, never laughed, never even existed. I vaguely registered the guys pulling Tara off me, Miles pulling my upper body from the ground, his arms wrapping around me. His mouth was moving, but I couldn't hear him. Mary Summers had been a person, a soul, and I had wiped her from existence as if she were nothing. Chapter 19. Someone must have called Rory because he was standing in front of me, talking to me, but I couldn't hear him. I was still trying to grasp what I had done. I couldn't talk until then, not until I was ready to tell them what I did. My chest was one raw, clenching ache. My lungs kept burning like I couldn't get enough air. My cheeks were wet. I was crying quietly. I didn't care. Someone should cry for her. There was a blanket around me. It was warm and rough against my skin. Someone was next to me. Rory walked away and towards the open grave. My chest threatened to explode. I didn't want him to know what I did, how I fucked up so badly. I had done something that was never meant to be done. Souls weren't meant to be destroyed. We were supposed to keep going, and I had just... My stomach lurched. I turned to the side and threw up, over and over again until I was empty. Hot hands were on my head, holding my hair, I think. I didn't care. I deserved so much worse. It was my area of talent, my responsibility. When I was done being sick, I wiped my mouth with the back of my shaking hand. I blinked. Rory was back, his mouth moving again. He looked at Miles, his mouth still moving. He was moving too fast for me right now. He was reaching out and touching my face. I felt it. I just didn't want to move. I couldn't with this burning pit in my chest. I was still trying to breathe, my lungs still starving. Someone lifted me, an arm around my back and another under my knees. It hurt. It hurt a lot, but I didn't want to move. I looked up to see that Isaac had me, his face worried, his skin pale. I didn't like his face like that. I blinked, and we were at the back of the Blazer, the back gate down. Ethan was sitting in the back on the floor, his arms reaching out. Isaac passed me to him. Ethan tucked me into his lap. He was looking at me, his face drawn too. His chocolate eyes were scared. I didn't like that either. Ethan's mouth was moving, his fingers wiping at my face. I heard him. It was just too fast right now. We were moving. I blinked, and Ethan was handing me off to Asher. Asher's ocean eyes looked down at me, fear written in the lines of his face. I didn't like that at all. Asher walked through a familiar door. I recognized the high ceiling. We were at Miles's house. Asher put me down on something soft. I recognized the living room. Isaac was at the fireplace doing something. Ethan was kneeling in front of me, wiping my face with something wet. I felt the edge of one of his rings. Miles came in with big arms full of blanket. He put it around me. It was soft. Asher came in carrying my book bag. He poured it out and found the journal I had been reading all week. He shoved it into Miles's hands, his mouth moving. I heard a noise. I knew they were talking. Everything was just happening so fast. Isaac stepped away from the fireplace and started pulling out books from the boxes still on the coffee table. Everyone grabbed one, except Ethan. Ethan was still in front of me, wiping my face gently. He was telling me something. The only word I could make out was back. Zeke strode into the room, 4 weird bags in his hands. He took Ethan's spot in front of me, his sky-blue eyes running over me, his face hard, a flame of fear in his eyes. I really didn't like that. His hand was hot on my face. Zeke scowled and took off his jacket. He was talking, saying something about heat. It was the only word I could make out. He was talking too fast. Zeke pushed the blanket off my shoulders. He lifted me against his chest, an arm under my knees and an arm around my back. Pain exploded across my back. I jerked. I turned in his arms and pressed against his chest, knowing I was making pain-filled noises. I blinked. I was sitting wrapped against Zeke's chest, my forehead resting against his throat, hot bags in my lap against my stomach, a blanket wrapped around both of us. I vaguely heard crackling nearby. I could see the others around the coffee table. They were going through the books. They kept stealing glances at me, then going back to what they were doing. Soon, I felt warm. Zeke's body heat, the blanket, and the weird hot bags were making me warm. Hot packs. They were hot packs. How long had I been sitting here? Sunlight was pouring through the windows. Isaac got to his feet. He threw the book at the wall. I heard the thump. His face was red, tears running down his cheeks as he pressed his hands against his scalp, rubbing hard. He began pacing across the room and back. He was freaking out. I looked at the others and saw the same signs. Miles's hands were fists as he tapped against his thigh. Ethan was taking deep, controlled breaths, his fingers constantly spinning one of his rings. Asher was rocking himself slightly, his neck red from where he'd been rubbing. And Zeke. I could feel Zeke holding me tight, a hand rubbing up and down my arm trying to warm me. His hands were shaking. They were all freaking out. I wanted to tell them I was fine, but I didn't move my mouth. That wasn't fine. Shit. Okay, time to climb out of this, Lexi. You can't leave them hanging like this. As soon as I made the decision, I felt myself start to rise, like a bubble from the bottom of a pond. I was moving upwards. The further up I went, the more I seemed to catch up to the world. Then the pain hit. I felt like I got hit by a truck. My gut was knotted with embers, my throat still tight. It felt like a hand was clutching my heart in its fist and squeezing. How could I have done that? What had I been thinking? I was such a fucking idiot. I was standing in that graveyard, and I knew it was wrong. I sank a little more into Zeke. He noticed the shift. His hand moved to the back of my neck.
Guys, she shifted a bit.
I understood Zeke's words this time. They were loud, but I understood them. The others looked up at me. Everyone's face was white. I was still rising. I wanted to scream. I was furious with myself. Why? Why did I fucking do that? You fucking idiot! Then the world snapped into terrifyingly sharp technicolor. My entire body started shaking. I was gasping. What the fuck were you thinking, Lexi? You knew on a gut level. You knew. It was bad. I scrambled off Zeke's lap. No one should touch me. They didn't know what I did. My knees came to my chest. My forehead rested on my knees. I wrapped my arms over my head, my hands and nails digging into my scalp. I rocked myself back and forth, trying to get through the next second and the next. Hands touched my back, pulled my hair out of my face. I knew they were talking to me, but everything I had was focused on just breathing through the next moment. My chest felt like it was an aching void that would forever burn. It was what I deserved. I was so fucking stupid. I didn't even understand what was happening here. All I had seen was the surface. If I had just waited longer, just tried harder, Mary Summers would still exist somewhere. It's my fault. My responsibility. My fault. I kept rocking, kept breathing, and trying not to lose my mind. Time passed. I don't know how long. I stayed curled up and rocking that way, but I became aware of sound again. My fault, my fault, my fault. I was whimpering, my voice small and cracked.
Lexi, tell us.
Ethan's voice rolled through my ears, grabbing my attention. I blinked and lifted my head. Ethan was on my left, sitting on the hearth beside me. Zeke was to my right, his arms still around me. Asher and Miles sat on the coffee table waiting. Isaac was pacing. I stopped rocking. They needed to know. I erased her, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. I erased her from existence. My chest ached so much it felt like it was on fire. The guys seemed to understand me now. They all had looks of horror on their faces. I saw it all, felt it all. I fucking deserved it. Tears started falling down my face.
Why do you say that, Lexi?
Zeke asked, his voice rougher than usual. I wiped my cheeks with shaking hands. Every breath I took burned. Because the problem wasn't her. I swallowed hard before I told them. It was the energy. It fucked her up. I started rocking again. The veil is shut now. There is nowhere for it to go. Hands were on my face. I blinked hard and saw Miles, his emerald eyes examining mine. Tell us what happened. I blinked hard and focused. Miles sat back on the coffee table. When her bones were salted and burned, she went into the veil. I knew my face was blank, but I was just concentrating on getting it out. You guys salted and burned her bones, but I was the necromancer there. It's my responsibility. I needed to focus. I pressed my nails into the palms of my hands and squeezed. The pain brought me back a bit more. I needed something. I was so fucking tired. Coffee, please. Isaac immediately ran into the kitchen. I kept pressing my nails into my palms so I could keep talking. There are 2 ways out of the veil. One's moving on, the other is the pit. I was starting to shake again. I was bone-deep cold. I looked for the blanket and saw it on the floor. I began to move to reach for it when Zeke seemed to read my mind. He picked up the blanket and wrapped it around me. I moved my legs down, crossing them underneath me, and held the blanket to me. I looked at the floor, not really seeing it anymore. In the veil, the sky is how you move on to the next part. The pit is below. The sky was wrong. It was boiling clouds, green smoke, and lightning. The trees around the pit were burnt down to charcoal. It was all wrong. Isaac came back in and carefully handed me a mug. I took a sip. It warmed my insides, and I really needed that right now. I took another drink, feeling stronger. I can break down later. They needed to know what was going on. The veil walls have been shut. The dead can't get there now, I told them, still feeling cold. I took another drink before looking at each of them. The dead can't move on. Not until it's open again, and the energy is just going to keep building. Asher's brow drew down.
Allie, what are you saying?
I sniffed, feeling almost manic to make them understand. They needed to understand. They needed to know. The world is like a water balloon filling with water. This one is usually a tube, but someone has put a knot in one end. But the water, the energy, is still filling it up, and this balloon will never break. It just gets bigger. I looked around the circle at them, my hands shaking still. And someone is planning to use it. Curses went around the circle.
Lexi, if the energy made Mary Summers go nuts, does that mean...
I scoffed, tears filling my eyes at the mention of Mary. We ain't seen anything yet, I warned him.
You said there were 2 ways out of the veil, the sky and the pit.
Miles said.
What is the pit?
I took a deep, shaking breath.
Hell?
Asher offered. I shook my head. Worse. It's nothing. It's where things go to be unmade. Tears filled my eyes as I remembered Mary's face. That's where I sent her. I tried to pull her back. I held her hands and I pulled, but the pit kept pulling her harder. I couldn't let her go like that. I couldn't let her go feeling alone. Tears were pouring down my face as I continued. I felt everything she did. She was terrified. The least I could fucking do was make sure she didn't feel alone. I wiped my face and my breathing shaky. There is nothing left of Mary Summers. I broke down. I stopped talking and cried. When the crying turned to sobbing, the guys still held me. Miles brought me tissues and Ethan grabbed a trash can. I don't remember how long I cried, but I do remember that they took turns holding me, rocking me, telling me all the things you say when someone you care about is breaking down. I do remember that during that time, not one of them left my side. They were there with me through all of it.
The boys. Miles. I adjusted my glasses and watched Zeke looking out the kitchen door. He was spying again. I understood the urge, but Lexi had said she wanted to do this alone. I didn't like it myself, but it was her choice. Zeke, stop watching, I said, still managing to keep my voice calm. Everyone was on edge, waiting for Lexi to finish talking to Rory. Lexi breaking down had bothered everyone. She had such a big personality that you never really noticed how small she was. Not until she starts crying. Then you remember that she's breakable. I looked down at the counter and focused on tapping out a staccato rhythm. It helped. Barely. I needed to be the calm one. Zeke was still watching. "Zeke!" I bet out, not asking this time. Zeke ran a hand through his hair and stepped away from the door. "She's fucking crying again!" Zeke growled as he walked further into the kitchen and leaned against the cabinets, his face troubled. "She's going to cry for a while. We killed a soul, and she felt that soul die," I pointed out, my own voice growing colder. I needed to be the calm one, the rational one. That's going to take time to heal, for all of us. I took a deep, calming breath and let it out. She's going to need time. The guilt might not go away, but eventually it will become bearable. For all of us. I looked over at Asher. He was leaning against the cabinets on the wall closest to the hallway. His eyes were unfocused. I sighed. I couldn't really stop him from listening in. He couldn't help it. "She keeps saying I," Asher announced. Asher's eyes focused before he looked around the room. "She's saying I killed her, I destroyed her." He shook his head, his face blank. "She thinks that because it's her area of talent, it's her responsibility, that she somehow should have known what to do," I tried to explain. "She's taking all the guilt onto her." "She's not the one who lit the fucking match." Ethan's voice was hard as he leaned in front of the sink. Heart heavy, I tried to get through to them again. "She's going to try and take all the blame, and we can't let her." Everyone looked at me. Good. Now they were listening. "We have to make her realize she wasn't alone in this mistake, that we did this too." The guys all nodded. All of their faces were haunted. "We also have to convince her that with the knowledge we had at the time, we didn't see another choice. It was a mistake. We didn't go out there to kill Mary Summer's soul. We went out there to protect Lexi." The guys nodded again. "We tell her it was an honest, horrible mistake that we all made." Everyone agreed. Asher's eyes were on the floor again. "She's telling him about the veil now." Asher closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose. "What the hell are we supposed to do about the veil?" Ethan grumbled. Everyone was silent for a while. "We help her any way we can," I told them honestly. "We're there for her when she needs us." I nodded, already making a list. "I'll hire someone to start digging into necromancy and anything to do with the veil, anything about controlling the dead." I didn't know if it would work, but I had resources, and I'd use everything I had so I never have to watch Lexi break down like that again. Heck, I'll hire a team if I have to. Isaac was nodding. "I'll design her a training program like we talked about last night. It'll keep her mind off things. Plus, self-defense for someone her size is never a bad thing to have." He lifted his head and looked around to the group. "You guys willing to help her train?" Everyone nodded. "She's already scheduled 3 climbing lessons a week for the next 3 months," Asher said to the room. "She really liked climbing." Ethan looked around at us, with a strange look on his face. "What she needs to do is a link to the veil. We need to find out how she's supposed to do that before anything else," he reminded us. "More meditation exercises," I offered. Then I realized how much was really there. We are going to need to help her make a schedule. Schedule some recreation time around all this too. "She also needs to eat right," Zeke said, drawing everyone's attention. "Serena said taking care of herself was not an option. She needs to eat right and sleep 8 hours a night." Everyone else cursed. I sighed. "She never sleeps 8 hours," Isaac snapped. "Hell, last night she was screaming after 2. Then again after another 3, Ethan added, his face dark. Isaac said she stopped whimpering when he touched her. He looked up and around the room. Maybe that's the answer. The others were silent. I started thinking about a different solution, but there was another issue we needed to talk about before Lexi finished talking to Rory. I know everyone cares about Lexi, but right now we need to know how much? I asked, a bit distracted. Everyone glared at me. Zeke looked downright hostile. What did I say? We aren't bailing on her, Zeke growled at me. Oh, that's what it sounded like? I'm not trying to say we should. I looked around at each of them and tried again. I mean, how do you guys feel about her? How does she fit in our group? She's a girl, and that's going to change the dynamics a bit. The room was quiet. I don't want to watch romantic girly movies, Isaac groaned. Ethan laughed. You won't. Have you seen the movies she likes? Deadpool is a favorite. Monty Python and the Holy Grail is another. Oh, and Tremors 1, 2, and 3, not to mention Star Wars. Everyone chuckled. She fits, Zeke admitted. I noticed it the first night studying at Rory's. Me too, Isaac nodded. It's like she's been with us for years. Like puzzle pieces, and we didn't know we were missing one, Ethan added. She already feels like family, Asher agreed. Like she's always been here. Then we should have a no-dating Lexi rule, I told them seriously. They all looked surprised. Do we really need one? Ethan asked, his face puzzled. Anyone want to date her? No one answered. I sighed. No one was going to fess up now if they did. We're all going to be spending lots of time together. She's new, different. She's funny and, well, she's cute. The word you're looking for is cute, Isaac supplied, then frowned at me. Because if you call her hot, I'm going to smack you. I sighed and tried to explain again. I just want to cut off trouble before it starts. I swallowed and tried again. Imagine if she dated one of us and it didn't work out. How would she still be able to hang out with us? Be friends with the rest of us? Or worse, what if one of us starts dating her and someone else liked her too? Everyone started thinking about it. The room was quiet for a time. I see where you're going, Zeke said. That makes sense, Isaac mumbled. I can get on board with that, Ethan chimed in. You do realize you guys are assuming she'd want to date one of us, Asher pointed out. That made everyone stop and think. She canceled on Dylan last night, but he's still very much on the radar. What did she end up telling him? Ethan asked, rubbing an eyebrow. She told him a relative died, and she won't be able to see him for a couple weeks, Asher replied. I backed her story up to him. I don't think it'll be a problem. So this whole thing might not even be necessary, Zeke pointed out. I still think it is, I told them honestly. I make a motion to have a no-dating Lexi policy within the group. Ethan sighed. Seconded. Ethan's voice told me he clearly didn't see the point of this. Third, Asher agreed distractedly as he pulled out his cell phone. Motion passed, I said. No dating Lexi. Asher tilted his head to the side. They're done talking.
Epilogue. Rory let me stay at Miles's over the weekend and into the week. He understood that I couldn't see Tara just yet. I spent a lot of my time at Miles's, sleeping and talking to the guys. It took a lot of conversations, but I realized I wasn't the only one who felt guilty over Mary Summers, that the guys thought themselves responsible too. I didn't want them to be right, so I talked to Serena about what happened. It was an awful conversation. She said everything comes with a price. I paid that price, but we were all responsible. I'm still working on believing that, but the guys all keep saying the same thing. We should feel guilty, but it was an honest, horrible mistake. All we could do is make sure it never happened again. My time sleeping at Miles's wasn't so great at first. If I were alone, I'd wake up screaming with Mary Summers' face as she died fresh in my mind again. The guys were never far away, though on the second night after I had woke everyone up again, Ethan said, "Fuck it," and climbed into bed with me. When I slept through the night, that became our norm. One of the twins would sleep next to me, and the other the next night. It made going back to Rory's harder. I still wake up at night, though I'm able to stop myself before I start screaming now. Jessica's photo of me in the locker room had unexpected consequences for her. It was the Tuesday after the game, and pictures of Jessica changing in the locker room were sent from person to person. She broke the rules of the locker room and faced the consequences. I thought it was rather funny. Asher didn't like it, but he also thought it was poetic justice. Dylan and I are having trouble getting our schedules to sync up for a date. Someone quit at their hardware store. Dylan is having to pick up the slack. We're still talking or texting every day, and we have a break coming up from school, so we'll meet up sometime. No, he isn't my boyfriend. Zeke was right about the repercussions from the big screen photo. I get catcalled and harassed anytime I'm in the hallway now. I'm thinking of getting a middle finger sign and putting it on the back of my jacket just to save me some time. Miles isn't handling it well, but I've managed to keep him from hitting anyone. I'm still looking for anything on the veil and how to control this gift of mine, not to mention how to open the veil for spirits again. But I keep coming up with nothing. I sent Claire out of town. I didn't want the extra energy messing her up the way it did Mary